What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I'm doing a fun little video talking about Eternity Code. Today I'm looking at in my opinion, the 5 most underrated cards from Eternity Code. I think this set is actually phenomenal. I think this is and will be the best core set we see all year. I think it'll be debatable whether or not it's better than like Dual Overload and like the Megatins and stuff. But I think as far as the core sets go, this one will be just like top notch. This one will be a really good core set that we remember for a long time. And in this core set, there's like the top level stuff that everybody's looking at, everybody's got their eye on, the generic stuff, but there's also a handful of cards that are going a little bit under the radar, and so I wanted to highlight those here. So if you didn't quite notice these, or these didn't really catch your eye, maybe this video will help you to realize a little bit of extra potential there. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, one more thing before we get into this. I have a couple cards that are like pairs, like two cards where I'm like, these kind of go together in like being underrated, and then they kind of work towards the same thing. So just so you know, technically this is what 8 underrated cards, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Starting off first is our card right up on the screen that I left, right? We've got Noctovision Dragon. This card's really, really cool for Dark Dragon decks. So if you don't know what this card does, we'll do a quick read through. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a face-down card or cards you control, quick effect, you can banish this card from the graveyard, negate that effect. Also, your opponent cannot target that face-down card or cards with card effects for the rest of this turn. You can only use each of the following effects also once per turn. First effect, if a Dark Dragon monster is special summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And second effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard as linked material, you can draw 1 card. So pretty much this card is just a really, really nice extender with benefits. The biggest thing here is, yeah, in Rockets or any other Dark Dragon deck, you just may link into a Dark Dragon. This guy jumps out of the hand immediately, and then when you link up with him, you also get to draw a card. He is a straight up +1 in the simplest fashion, and then also from there, it depends on the strategy. I'm assuming if you're playing a link strategy, it won't come up that much, but he also gives you protection on any set cards you might happen to have at any point, which could be nice. I don't know. Maybe you after side decking, you draw some trap cards or something, and you want to protect them from Cosmic Cyclone, whatever. And this guy can do that, can offer that to you. So very, very underrated card. I think this card could be like a staple in Rockets going forward. Rockets are already looking like a strong deck this format. We just got to keep an eye out for it. But very, very cool. Next up, we have Proxy F Magician, another really cool card. I absolutely love the art on this card. It's phenomenal. But let's look at what he does. So he is a Link 2 with bottom left, bottom right arrows. He has 1400 attack, and he takes any 2 effect monsters, so he's completely generic in that way. His effect reads, however, during your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your field as fusion material. If a fusion monster or monsters is fusion summoned to a zone this card points to, you can special summon 1 monster with 1000 or less attack from your hand. You can only use each effect of Proxy F Magician once per turn. So this card's really, really cool. Essentially what this is it allows you to fusion summon without needing to get to a Polymerization or a fusion card. He allows you to do it straight up, which is very cool. A lot of people could argue that, like, why wouldn't you just go into Predaplant Verte Anaconda? Well, he doesn't say you can't summon anymore for the rest of the turn, so there's some bonus there. And then he also has the extendability, so there's some differences there. I think some of the downsides is that he has to use monsters specifically from the field. You can't use stuff from hand or graveyard, anything like that. You have to fuse from the field specifically, so that's a little bit worse. He can use himself as one of the materials, however. So like if you just like summon an Alistair, you could just take straight up him and Alistair into like a Purgatrio, which is pretty cool because he is fire attribute. But yeah, I just think this could come up in certain decks that maybe don't like fusion-based decks, but maybe they have certain like consistency issues sometimes when it comes to like getting to their fusion spells. And if you like, maybe it's the kind of deck that can just put monsters on the field, but sometimes they can't get to the fusion spells, and so they just can't even connect to the fusion monsters that their deck is based around. And so this card could help shore up some of those weaknesses in those kinds of decks. So pretty cool card. I thought it was really interesting how generic it is. Just like fuse, just fuse. Make this and fuse. As long as you have the materials, you're good. So it's a cool card in my opinion. Next up, we have two cards going together. We have Heavy Forward and Machina Metal Cruncher. Both of these are, you'd think they're an Infinitrack and a Machina card, but they're actually kind of generic. The Infinitrack a little bit less. This is a search card for Infinitrack. It's a continuous spell. On activation, you add an Infinitrack monster from deck to hand, and also once per turn, you can target a Machine Exceed you control and do one of these effects. You can either change its battle position or attach this card to it as material. So you can either add an extra material, or you can, I believe some of the Infinitracks revive themselves from grave, but they have to revive in defense mode. So this card could allow you to be a little more offensive, a little quicker, which is nice. And then just the fact that it searches on activation is always good, always welcome. But the reason this is interesting is because there are actually some other decks that actually use Infinitrack engines to support them. And the biggest one is probably Trains, other than Infinitrack. Machina might be part of that as well. But this card is really nice because if that engine is really the core, like, best engine you want to get to, you've got 3 more copies, and then this does a little bit extra. Getting materials on stuff, changing battle positions, all that stuff. And I think because of that, this card is actually, like, really, really nice and really slept on, because people just think Infinitrack is such doo-doo, but people don't think Trains are doo-doo. I think Trains are, like, really scary, actually. And so this card, like, supports decks like those. In the same vein, I guess, Machina Metal Cruncher is a very new card as well. If you don't know what it does, it says if you control no face-up cards, you can normal summon this card without tributing, and then its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can reveal 3 Earth Machines from your deck. Then your opponent randomly adds 1 of them to your hand, and you shuffle the rest back into the deck. So pretty much what this is your leadoff card. He's your normal summon. He's your Stratos now. For any, not just Machina. This is any Earth Machine. We are talking Trains, we are talking Machina, we are talking Infinitrack. This card is literally just your starter. You just lead this off by just summoning this and getting a search immediately. And I think that definitely has some value, some legit solid value. So especially in a deck like Trains, where, like, they really don't have a strong normal summon. I mean, they have, like, the level 10 that can normal summon itself, and you might summon like the rail car, whatever it's called, Pegasus, Flying Pegasus. But, like, I think this card is just better. Like, those are, like, nice cards, but this card is just straight up better. This card's a straight up Stratos. So, in my opinion, this card will be slept on, and I think these are both interesting / significant buffs for those kinds of decks we just talked about. So, definitely keep your eye on those. Do not underestimate those decks. Don't underestimate Trains, especially. That deck's actually legit scary. I promise. Next up, we have another pairing of cards. We have Gachiri Adagnister and Armored Bitron. These are just generic Cyber support cards, but I really think they fit into a lot of Cyber's decks and really have some value. So first thing here, we're looking at Gachiri Adagnister. This is a level 8 Cyberse monster. It's Earth, 0 attack, 3000 defense, and it has some effects. Those effects read: first time each Cyberse monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect each turn, it is not destroyed. And you can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. First effect says you can target 1 Cyberse effect monster you control, negate its effects, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. And the second effect, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 face-up monster you control. That target is unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of your opponent's turn. This card is really good in my opinion. I think this is just like a great generic Cyberse extender, like, support card. First off, while he's on the field, he gives card effect destruction protection to all your Cyberse monsters. That has value. Secondly, he jumps on the field so incredibly easy. All you have to do is have a Cyberse, and usually you could use something like a normal summon. You normal summon Gazelle and Salamangreat. You use effect to dump. You don't need its effects after that. You can just negate his effects, summon this guy, and you got the body on board. Once you use Sunlight Wolf's effects to get all your recursion, you can negate him till the end of the turn. Who cares? You're not losing anything. And that's like for other archetypes too. You end up on that kind of thing. So he jumps out of the hand super easy. He gives you the protection, and on the last effect, he gives you even more protection because he makes one monster completely unaffected by all your opponent's card effects until the end of their turn. That can make certain stuff very, very difficult to out. I mean, imagine even if you think like Pyro Phoenix is not like the way you want to go, you can just like link this off into that. Actually, I don't think you can go into Power of Phantoms with this, but even something as simple as like Borreload, because this actually says you can target any face-up monster you control. And then you have a Borreload that's unaffected by all monsters, and Borreload can actually lower something by 500, making it so they have to get something 3,500 or bigger to kill him by battle. Well, so there's actually some legit application here. I think this card's really interesting and a really, really cool like niche card that's pretty spicy. So very, very cool. Next up, we have Armored Bitron. This is the other card that I was talking about supporting Cyberse. This is like a Lone Fire Blossom-esque card, right? You contribute this card to special summon a Cyber straight from the deck. Its effects are negated. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for Cyberses. So there are some drawbacks. Negating the monster does hurt, as well as locking you into Cyberse. But usually Cyberse decks stick pretty true to their type, so that's not too crazy. And then his last effect is kind of recursion. If a Link 3 or higher Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard but banish it when it next leaves the field. So also another pretty cool effect, because you can summon him back, and if your opponent doesn't remove this card too, on your next turn you could just tribute this again, get a free special summon again. So pretty cool card. I like him a lot. I think what he is like for certain Cyberse decks, he's a really interesting like consistency supporter. Getting them to the few cards that they need, their best starters. I'm not saying this is specifically good in Salamangreat, because they already have a myriad of like good starter cards that they can get access to easily. But like combining this with like Lady Debug, and we pretty much just like have like two incredibly generic like great starter cards for any future Cyberse archetype. So I think that's pretty cool. I think if you're going to build something Cyberse, I don't think this is a card you should ignore. I think you should definitely give it a look if you think it's interesting, and then I don't know, go from there. So don't miss out on him. And then we finish out with one more pairing of cards. It's actually the Arch Nemesis bosses. I've seen people say that these cards are good, but I think they're really underestimating how good these cards can be. If you don't know what they do, they kind of do the same thing, but like flip-flop. So I'll only read one, and then we'll do the rest. So we'll look at Protos here. He cannot be normal summoned or set. He must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes from graveyard and or face-up field. So pretty easy to summon, honestly. If you can just get multiple things in the graveyard, it could be pretty easy to set up. He cannot be destroyed by card effects. Neither can Ashatos. And then his other effect is the nuts one. You can declare any monster attribute that is on the field. Destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute. Also, until the end of the next turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that attribute. That effect is so crazy for me. Keep in mind that Ashatos is the same exact thing, just for types, not attributes. So you do all that stuff. You have to banish 3 monsters with different types, and then when you do the board wipe, it just is type, and the same thing with the lock. So this card is insanely good because, like, thinking about archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh!, a lot of archetypes end up being the same attribute or type, and so that wipe effect is so strong. I mean, just imagine you're playing Salamangreat, and you go to wipe the board. Even if they have Balinks to protect their monster, you still at least like beta Balinks. You're gonna go battle phase to like kill the Sunlight Wolf probably anyway, and then your opponent on their next turn cannot summon any fire monsters, period, which could just straight up lock them out of doing anything. They literally might just pass. Like, and there are multiple decks that kind of work in that same vein. So it's really crazy. And even though this thing's dark, it can't be destroyed by card effects. So when you go to wipe darks, it lives. And against like Shaddolls, you wipe all darks off the field, and like, how much can they actually do if they can't special summon any dark monsters? They'd have to open a very specific hand to play around that. So really crazy. I think this card is like so incredibly wild, but both of them are, and I think they can fit into any deck that maybe like one can set these up pretty easily, get those graveyards filled up, but 2, the other big one would be stuff like just decks that don't have as strong win conditions. These cards can just be straight up win conditions. Maybe they have like decks that can bait out interruptions and stuff, but they don't have like the finishing punch. These cards can be the last card in your hand. You drop it on the field, you wipe the board, and now you just have a beater that can't be destroyed by card effects, and once per turn, you're wiping your opponent's board. Like, it's pretty strong, in my opinion, and I think people have been underestimating what these cards might potentially be able to do when they do get released. So that's pretty much it for my video here, guys. Those are my 5, well, technically 8 most underrated cards from all of Eternity Code. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think I missed something that is being underrated and isn't on this list. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.